We are in the laws of tefillah, of prayer, chapter 8, on this auspicious day, Yud Aleph Nisan, 11th day of the month of Nisan, Rebbe's birthday, 122 years young. Let us get right into the teachings. Communal prayer is always heard. That's a minyan, right? Even when there are transgressors among the congregation, the Holy One, blessed be He, does not reject the prayers of many. Therefore, a person...
Excuse me, Rabbi.
Yes.
We're not seeing the Rambam.
Oh, I didn't share it. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Thank you for talking out. Oh, there we go. Okay. So, therefore, a person should include himself in the community and should not pray alone whenever he is able to pray with the community. Whenever you could, should daven with a minyan. One should always spend the early morning and evening hours in the synagogue, for prayer will not be heard at all times except when recited in the synagogue. Anyone who has a synagogue in the city and does not pray together with the congregation is called a bad neighbor. Huh? Right. Now, if you, again, he said it's better to do it, but if you can't because you're working, you can't because you've got other obligations, right? Then, but of course it's best to try to do this. I don't always, Shachris, we have a minyan here for in the morning, so I'm davening with a minyan, but min chamariv, I don't always do it. It's, because of other responsibilities. The truth is, it's good to always learn this because then it just encourages you to do even more, right? It is a mitzvah to run to the synagogue, as states, let us run to know God. A person should not take long steps when he leaves the synagogue. Instead, he should proceed slowly, step by step, right? In other words, you're not showing, how happy you are to get out of synagogue. Some people, what prayer is? Their prayer starts with, when are we going to finish? Right? That sentiment is not a healthy, good sentiment. When one enters a synagogue, you should go to in the distance of 2 doorways and then pray in order to fill the instruction to guard the posts of my doors, right? So in other words, don't walk in and pray right away. Walk in at least a bit and then daven. Halacha number 3, the study hall is greater than synagogue. Oh, that's where we are right now. This is the study hall where we came from the synagogue, from davening, right? So even though some of the great sages lived in cities where many synagogues were located, they would pray only in the place where they studied Torah. So some people, that's what they did, right? The above applies, however, only when one can participate in communal prayer there.
So wait a minute, they prayed in the study hall? So like they would do
Yeah, so they do it in the same place, right? They do in the same place. But there is there's some of the sages, but for regular folk, there's a prayer place and a study place. So this is our study hall over here. Right? So what is implied by the term communal prayer? One person prays aloud and all the others listen. This should not be done with fewer than 10 adult-free males. The leader of the congregation is counted one of them. Even if some of them are already prayed and fulfilled their obligation, they can complete the quorum of 10, provided the majority of the 10 have not prayed. Right? So you don't have to have everybody doing the Amidah. That's why I'm making sure that there's always 6 people, because you need a majority, right? 6 people that daven the Amidah. Because if you don't have 6 people daven the Amidah, then it becomes a question of the repetition, because you didn't have a majority of a quorum being 10.
Oh, so you don't necessarily need to have a video of God.
No. You need 10 people in the room. What if some of them davened or some of them didn't daven yet?
Oh, okay.
That's the
Okay.
issue.
Right.
So you need 10 men, right? Now, all 10 don't have to be davening, don't have to. You need a majority of the 10, that's 6, that daven, right? That daven. So therefore, that's what's necessary. Okay?
You think a word, a source, when there's time to.
Chazorah,
What's that mean?
repetition. Okay. Hi. Excuse me one moment. I'm getting a little bit of coffee over here.
Enjoy it.
Thank you.
Information over.
That's why I'm gonna give you a few moments, Oh, it's the good hot. David, you're on top of your game.
Yeah. Well, that's going, okay, now I know how much, you see how much, soy you do.
Well, I have a quarter of a cup here.
Okay. So it warms it up, it doesn't sound so hot now.
Hi.
You test it with your finger.
I knew. Okay. So even if some of them already prayed, right? We said they can complete. Similarly, we should not recite Kedusha, right? Kedusha, for those who have the Tilas Hashem Siddur, is page 47 in the gray at the top. Okay. So read the Torah with its blessing before and after it, or read the Haftorah from the prophets, except with a quorum of 10. You need 10. Okay. Similarly, one person should not recite the blessing associated with the Shema, while the others listen and answer Amen, except in the presence of a quorum of 10. This is called Hiris al Hashma. Back in the day, people didn't know how to read, right? So they would answer Amen. That's why we have the repetition. He'll speak about that. We have the repetition because people didn't know how to read. So that at least they would hear and answer Amen, right? They wouldn't say Baruch Hu Shmai, because then that's an interruption. They would just say Amen because they were fulfilling through the repetition. Something we'll get through. But that's what he's speaking about here, about saying Amen, right? In other words, you're listening. That's what he said. Remember the leaders and people are answering. Today people know how to read. And even though they don't know how to read Hebrew, they can read in English or another language, right? Back in the day, though, it was very different. The illiteracy was rampant. One only recites the Kaddish, right? The mourner's prayer with 10. And priests do not bless the people except in the presence of a quorum of 10. The priests themselves may be considered part of the quorum. 10 are required because every group of 10 Jews is called a congregation. This is implied from the verse. How long must I suffer with this evil congregation? They were 10, for Joshua and Caleb are not included among them. Who were the 10? 10 spies, right? So the word, right, it's called Ada in Hebrew. That's a congregation, right? And so, and by the way, from there we see, interesting, that there were 10 bad people, but they're still congregation, right? Something we mentioned previously. Any holy matter may only be performed in the congregation of Jews, as stated, and I shall be sanctified amongst the children of Israel. Regarding all these matters, if they were to begin with 10 people and some leave, even though they are not permitted to, the remainder should conclude the holy matter. Nobody. So I see what second. So yeah, right. If you're in the middle of repetitions and now you don't have a minion, you can continue because you started with the minion, for example, right? Because you started with. Oh, what happened there? Okay. Number 7. All 10 members of a congregation and the leader of the congregation must be in one place. So now we're going to go into what's considered being in a synagogue, right? For example, if you're in the hallway over here, or if you're over here, don't say no. Don't say no. Right? Is that part of the minion or not? Okay.
I mean, if some people are like dispersed, so someone here.
Right.
Don't you have to be in the same room all the time?
Why? That's what I thought we were learning Rambam. Isn't that what we're here to learn? Okay, so Rambam will tell us, right? And if we put aside what we think we know, then we'll learn something new. Okay, because you see, it's not so simple. As anything in Jewish law, not so simple, right? Okay, the following rules apply when a small courtyard opens up into entirely in its entirety into a large courtyard. If there are 9 people in the large one and 1 in the small, they may be considered as one group to form a quorum of 10. So if we have 9 in the synagogue and 1 is outside in the hallway, that's still a minion.
Not here.
Not here because there'll be because you have to be able to see there's no connection. If you're and you can't see is one, but if you're standing outside and you can see the leader right directly in front of you, so then it's not a problem, right? If there were 9 people in the small one and 1 in the large one, they're not considered as one group because the small is nullified to the big. The big's not nullified to the small, right? Got it? So if we were davening in here and 1 person was there, no, that wouldn't count because that big incorporates small. Small doesn't incorporate big. All right. Okay. Now let's get a more detailed, right? Now you might say, well, what's the problem over here? Just get everyone in the same room. Okay. We need to know the parameters of the law. If a congregation is in a large one, but the leader of the congregation is a small one, they fulfill their obligation. So imagine the chazan was in the hallway facing inside, right? 9 of us are inside and the chazan is outside. You're okay? If the congregation is in the small one, but the leader of the congregation is in the large one, they do not fill their obligation since he is separate from them and not with them in one place. Because remember, the majority of them are in the large one. So the small one's nullified to the large one. And there's only 1, even though he's the leader, but he's still nullified, right? Got it? But if the congregation, if the 9 are in the small, like in the hallway, right? But the leader of the congregation is in the large one, so then that's not good because the big one can't be nullified to the small one, right? The motivating principle is that the walls of each side of the large courtyard are separated from the small one. However, the smaller one is not separated from the large one, but rather is considered as its corner, right? It's like an extension. The small one is considered like its corner, it's an extension, but not the other way around. Okay. That's why the majority of them have to be in the large one in order that the small one should be considered a corner to it. Similarly, if there were feces in the larger courtyard, it is forbidden to pray or recite Shema even in the smaller one, because the smaller one is nullified to the big one, right? And if there were feces in the smaller one, now, if you shut the door, that's not a problem. But if the doors are open, that's when they create is like, an extension, right? If there were feces in the smaller one, it is permissible to pray and recite the Shema on the larger one, provided that there's no foul odor, since the larger courtyard is set apart from the feces. Okay? The leader of the congregation can fulfill the obligation of prayer on behalf of the congregation. What does imply? What does that mean? When he prays and they listen and respond, Amen, something I mentioned before, right? After each and every blessing, it is considered as they prayed themselves. To whom does this apply? To one who does not know how to pray. However, one who does know how to pray only fulfills the obligation of praying himself. Again, back in the day, people didn't know how to pray, right? They didn't know how to read. So you could fulfill by saying Amen. Not Baruch Hu Shemai, just Amen. That's why by Kiddush, if you say Baruch Hu Shemai, by Kiddush, that you are fulfilling the, right? If you're not being fulfilled through it, and you're making your own Kiddush, fine, right? You have to be careful to don't say it, because someone else is going to fulfill it, is also going to say it. And they're being fulfilled. You're making your own Kiddush, someone else isn't. Got to be careful with that, because then you're going to confuse somebody. But that's called an interruption, right? Amen means so be it. So without an interruption, then you fulfill, right? Right. When does the above apply? Throughout the entire year, with the exception of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and the Jubilee. On these 2 days, the leader of the congregation can fulfill the obligation of prayer on behalf of those who know how to pray, just as he can fulfill the obligation of prayer on behalf of those who do not know how to pray. Why? Why is Yom Kippur on the Jubilee year and right, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur of the Jubilee year? Why is that? Because the Shemona Esrei recited on these days contains long blessings, and most people do not know them to the extent that they can have the same intention as the leader of the congregation. Right? Therefore, on these 2 days, even a person who knows how to pray is granted permission to rely on the prayers of the leader of the congregation to fulfill the obligation of prayer if he so desires. Again, today, because we generally we don't do that. I don't know if anybody that really would do such a thing. Okay. 11. Only a person of great stature within the community of both wisdom and deed should be appointed as the leader of the congregation. If he is an older man, it is very praiseworthy. An effort should be made to appoint as the leader of the congregation someone who has a pleasant voice and familiar with reading biblical verses. Right. In other words, because they're going to say the words properly. Right. A person who does not have a full beard should not be appointed as leader of the congregation if he has been a wise man of great stature as a gesture of respect to the congregation. However, he may recite Shema publicly after he has reached the age of 13 and manifest signs of physical maturity. We're talking here about the repetition, right, of the Amida. That's what we're specifically talking about. Well, that's what we're talking about. The one who's leading the congregation means of the Amida, of the Shemona Esrei, the Chazara. Exactly. Okay, 12. Are we good?
Yeah.
No, you're great. You forget. That was delivery?
Thanks for tomorrow.
Thank you.
Uh,
Kosher quality?
That's good.
Thank you. Okay. Similarly, the inarticulate are pronounced, who pronounce an aleph as an ayin as an aleph, or one who cannot articulate the letters in the proper manner, should not be appointed as leader of the congregation. A teacher may appoint one of his students to lead the prayers in his presence. A blind person may recite the Shema publicly and serve as leader of the congregation. A person whose shoulders are uncovered, though he may recite the Shema publicly, may not serve as leader of the congregation until he is covered by a cloak.
Yeah.
Right, so the Shema, yes, but not the Amida.
Perfect.
Okay. Okay, we're just going to do here in honor of, Nissan, we're just going to do a touch over here. The order of the prayers is as follows. In the morning, while all people are sitting, the leader of the congregation descends before the ark in the midst of the people and recites the Kaddish, right? That's the beginning, right? Everyone responds with all their strength. Amen. Yehei Rambam Vorach Le'olam Amen Omaya. They answer Amen to the end of the Kaddish. Afterwards, the Chazan declares Baruch es Hashem Havayrach, and they answer Baruch Hashem Havayrach Le'elavod. He then begins reciting the Shema. Reciting the Shema and the blessings out loud. They answer Amen after each blessing. Person who knows how to recite the blessings and read the Shema with him should read the blessings by himself until he reaches the blessing of Ga'al Yisrael, which is right before the Amidah, right? Immediately afterwards, all stand and pray in the hushed tone. A person who does not know how to pray should stand in silence while the leader of the congregation prays in a hushed tone together with the others. Whoever concludes his prayer with the congregation should take 3 steps back and stand still in a place he reached when he has stepped backwards. After the leader of the congregation takes 3 steps backwards and stands still, he begins the prayers in a loud voice from the beginning of the blessings, right? Again, we're speaking about the Amidah, the Shemona Esrei here, in order to fulfill the obligation on behalf of those who did not pray. Everyone, both those who did not fulfill their obligation to pray and those who fulfilled their obligation, stands, listens, and recites Amen after each of the and every blessing. The leader of the congregation recites Kiddusha, the 3rd blessing, and with that, we're going to conclude over here. All right, folks.
Thank you, Rabbi.